Hello, my friend, and welcome to this week's Simple Principles video, just for you. And this week I talk about something that I have touched on before, only this time, if you needed a second opinion, if you needed proof, or if you needed another angle with regards to the three principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, well, this one's for you. I've had a book on my shelf for some time now, and it's one of those that I keep passing, thinking, yep, gotta read that. Anyway, a couple of weeks ago, I did actually pick it up and start reading it. And as soon as I started reading it, I suddenly read it with three principles in mind. I didn't mean to. It seems that everything I'm picking up now, or everything I'm reading, I've automatically got the principles filter on to say, okay, how does this match up? How does it align? And sure enough, it did align. And the book is this one, The Fear Bubble by Ant Middleton. And as he says there, harness fear and live without limits. So straight away, just the title is quite intriguing. And I'm not going to give too much away, to be fair, if you can see that. I'm not even maybe a quarter of the way through the book, so it's not like I'm going to give loads away. But yeah. But I did want to kind of touch on something that links to the three principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. So for those that don't know, Ant Middleton, he's ex-Special Forces, served in the Special Boat Service, SBS, and he was point man during what are called hard arrests, where they go in and they take war criminals, for example, or people wanted for war crimes. And despite his experience, despite his years of what he's seen and where he's been and what he's done, he found that about 2 weeks before deployment, he was at home with his family, safe, well, everyone was fine. But for some reason, about 2 weeks before deployment, he would start to get a fear of the upcoming deployment. Now, for many of you, you recognize that doesn't make sense, because you right now, you're fine. And so you have a fear of the future. You have fear of something coming up. Anyway, he recognized this as well. And in his world, he thought the same, saying, hang on a second, I'm at home. I'm safe. I'm fine. My family around me. Why am I feeling this way? And so what he started to think is, okay, so the fear is only required when I'm on deployment. So he created a fear bubble for himself. He would step into that fear bubble when he was deployed 2 weeks later, stay in that fear bubble all the way through his deployment, come home and step out of the fear bubble where he was safe. For a while, that worked. However, some of you may know this as well, is that in deployments, they could sometimes be 4, 5, 6 months, certainly in the area that Mr. Middleton worked in. And so it's a long time to be in a fear bubble, isn't it? And he recognized that as well, saying, hang on a second, I'm spending too long in the fear bubble, therefore fear starts to take over. Fear becomes the dominant emotion, even though when he's on deployment, he is not constantly on alert. He's not constantly needing to be in that fear bubble, because he will have downtime. He will have quiet moments. He'll be in secure barracks, for example, where he can relax, a bit of relaxation. Relax and recuperation, I think. So he thought about this, and hang on a second, I'm spending too long in this fear bubble, right? So he was thinking about this, and then he got deployed the next time, and he was deployed He was a point man, as I said, and they were deployed to do a hard arrest of somebody, which meant going into a compound, breaking into a compound and taking over the compound in order to find the person they're doing the hard arrest. So he was point man, and this is where it kind of fell into place for him. So he was approaching. Bearing in mind, he's in operations. He's got his night goggles on, and he had his rifle, and all his skills were coming into play. And this is where it changed for him. This is where the penny dropped. He was approaching a wall, and behind that wall, he knew an enemy combatant was behind it. There were what are they called? They were watching out for. They were meant to be keeping an eye out, on watch, but they were sat behind a wall smoking a cigarette. Anyway, so as Mr. Middleton is approaching this wall, he recognizes the fear is not where he is right at that minute. He is fine. He knows what he's doing. He's confident. He's competent. He's good. The fear is where that corner of that wall is, where that enemy combatant is. And so he stepped into the fear bubble, did what he had to do, stepped out of the fear bubble, and then looked for the next fear bubble, which was the door to a big compound where he knew enemy soldiers were inside. And so he walked towards that fear bubble. He stepped into that fear bubble. He did what he needed to do. He then stepped out of the fear bubble and knew he was fine. And that is an example of universal mind, knowing that the universe has your back, that you are fine right now, and that the fear is over there. And you recognize it as an emotion, you recognize it as a temporary state. Therefore, you can walk into it, do what you need to do, and step out again. Now, you don't have to visualize it. In the 3 principles, it's just knowing that fear is an emotion and that fear is a safety mechanism. Again, I've talked about this before, where as a species, fear has kept us alive, hasn't it? Fear has stopped us from going into the wrong areas in the wood and being eaten alive by a saber-toothed tiger. Fear has allowed us to find the right shelters to survive in parts of the world that we should not really have survived in. We've adapted. Fear allows us to adapt. So it's recognizing as well that fear is just an emotion. It's not real, but we can use it. So if you have a situation, if you have something that you're scared of, that you have a fear of, is it in the future? Is it in the past? It's recognizing that they have no impact on you. You are not in the fear. I've talked about how perception is projection, where from an experience in the past, maybe we've had a fear, and we carry that around in our heads so that when we come across a similar situation, hasn't happened yet, but we know we're going to go there, we know that we need to do it, immediately the fear kicks in. Oh my God, this is what happened last time. What if it happens again? What if they don't like me? Oh, I really struggled last time. What am I going to say this time? I lost the accountant the last time. What's my boss going to say? It happens, doesn't it? It's natural, but it's recognizing it for what it is. It is just fear. And you can step in and you can step out. You can let it take over or you can let it float away. If you spend too long in the fear bubble, thinking about what might happen, fear takes over. So by the time you get into whatever you are feared of and trying to get done, you are less than optimal. Now, you might get through it, and it might be a struggle, or you don't get through it. And it's because you are carrying that fear around in your head. So, is the fear here, or is it over there? Where you're going to? Is the fear here, or is it behind you? And so recognize as soon as whatever you've done, take the win, step out away from the fear. And in 3 principles way, it means just know it doesn't affect you anymore. So that's covering the fear bubble and linking it to the 3 principles of universal mind, universal consciousness, and universal thought. Universal consciousness is the fact that we recognize it as fear. We recognize it's an emotion, and we can either let it control us or we can use it. And when we use it, once we've used it, just let it go. Cool. That's everything for this week then. Thanks for sticking with me. I know this is an extra long one at 11 minutes. Probably it's going to end up maybe heading towards 12 minutes by the time I've finished. I hope it has been useful. Let me know. Maybe you've read the book. Don't give anything away. But yeah, let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Stay safe. And I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.